Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary vs. the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Lang.
This is episode 34, and we are watching a movie called Something Wild. This came recommended to us by more than one person, actually. I've never heard of it, which is strange because I quickly, we glanced at the poster and I guess IMDb briefly to just see, where is this streaming? Where can I find it? And, it stars Melanie Griffith, Jeff Daniels, and Ray Liotta. All of which are known quantities even in the 80s. Jeff Daniels had been around for a few years. Melanie Griffith was certainly, so it's 1986, but she wasn't completely unknown.
Right.
So I'm surprised that this movie has completely disappeared. I shouldn't say completely disappeared, but I've never heard of it. It's not something that was ever playing on cable that I noticed.
I definitely heard of it. I've never seen it though. So.
Well, this again came recommended to us. I don't know who directed it. Do you know?
No. This poster won't help.
No. So when Dennis said, well, we had a debate. Can I at least look at the poster for some of these movies that I've never seen? Because, the idea is I've never seen these movies. I try to think of what I think this is about, and then we watch the film. And Dennis agreed, yes, it's okay if I look at a poster if I've never seen the film. Because sometimes, I have an idea of what a movie is, but I've never seen it.
By the way, it's Jonathan Demme.
It's Jonathan Demme.
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's...
You know him.
Yeah, I do know. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, that makes me a bit more excited. Okay, so Jonathan Demme made the movie. Still surprised that I've never seen it. For instance, a film maybe a year or two later, Married to the Mob, I've also never seen, but I've definitely heard of. Maybe this is a trial run for Married to the Mob.
So this is 2 years after Stop Making Sense.
Right.
So,
oh my God. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I'm even more excited now. Okay, so Jonathan Demme was a really great filmmaker. I anything of his I've seen, I've enjoyed on some level.
Oh, he made Swimming to Cambodia, which is also on the list.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Jonathan Demme, he made Stop Making Sense, which is my favorite concert film. Did he get the Oscar for Philadelphia?
I think so.
Yeah.
No, he got it for Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, but there you go. Look, Silence of the Lambs, that's one of those movies where I snuck over to a friend's house to watch.
Leslie?
Oh, yeah, of course it was Leslie. Yes.
I could guess the friend there.
Absolutely. And I still remember, we're sitting in her living room on a Saturday afternoon, golden sunlight streaming in. And, I had to have that much, sunlight coming in watching that movie. It's a great, great film, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing this film always looked to me like Desperately Seeking Susan.
Okay.
Type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wild Girl. I feel like this is a early incarnation of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, though.
Oh,
Just
interesting.
looking at the poster. I have no idea, but... Yeah,
but you know what? I know what you mean looking at that poster. Other than that, I don't know anything about it, except that I had one friend who was just yeah, this is Ray Liotta when he was young and hot. And I'm my image of Ray Liotta will always be, extremely sweaty at the end of Goodfellas. Yeah, coked up, running from the helicopters. So which is a great performance.
A gun in his face, he's just looking out of the way.
So that's my instant image of Ray Liotta. Not even Shillis Joe Jackson. That's, my brain instantly just goes right to that.
What, an 8 Man Out? Is that the movie?
8 Man? No.
No.
Oh, that's right. You've never seen Field of Dreams.
No.
Oh, Dennis versus the movies. Well, look, you're going to have to see Field of Dreams someday.
Okay, I guess. You'll have to see The Natural someday.
Well, yeah, it's on the list.
So it's crime, what do you think? Is it?
Well, so I'm guessing. Okay, so let me see. Between looking at the poster and who's cast in the first 3 names that pop up on IMDb, I'm gonna guess. So she looks wacky.
Yep.
And so I'm betting that
wild even.
She looks like something that is indeed wild. Yeah. And so my guess is that Jeff Daniels is falling for this woman, Melanie Griffith, but she has ties to the mob because that's Ray Liotta.
Yeah, of course.
Right. No, but that makes sense. So, like, this is basically him getting dragged into a crime caper by, as you said, what we are assuming is a manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah.
And how does that all end? I don't know. So that's what I assume is the plot.
Or she's a housewife married to Frank Sinatra, and this wacky guy comes along and sweeps her off her feet.
Wait, what is that?
No, I'm just saying Ray Liotta is Frank Sinatra, and she's a bored housewife, and then this weird guy who comes around upside down with his tie hanging out takes her to the most exciting mall in the world.
You know what? Your idea is way better than mine. It makes her wait, the most exciting mall in the world?
Yeah, because he's like the most exciting suburban guy or something, and he takes her away.
Jeff
from
Daniels is the most exciting suburban guy.
Yeah. Just looking at the poster, that's what I assume that it's about. He's the something wild.
You know what? That would be a twist.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. I'm just throwing out a possible other,
Well, how
reality.
how about we go watch the film
Yep.
and see which one of us was right.
All right.
Said it's time to go, well, alright. I don't want to go, I say alright. You never listen to me anyway. You're always talking, nothing much to say. You remind me of a TV show. That's alright, I'll watch it anyway. I don't talk much cause it gets in the way. Don't let it get in the way. We do our job, we get things done.
So it wasn't about a wacky suburbanite who changes the world of a depressed wife.
No. No, quite the opposite.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh my God, can I just talk about how much I loved this movie? Everything about this worked for me.
It was great.
It was so good. Oh my gosh, where to even begin? I mean, do we begin with the fact that like the opening song is by David Byrne?
Yeah, he knows the guy.
Yeah. So we just spent our 15th anniversary up in New York City, and we went and saw American Utopia, and it was fantastic. And so it was just starting this movie with an original David Byrne song. Just felt right. I mean,
and it sounded like his later stuff too.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Like, okay, so here's the thing. I'm probably gonna talk a lot about music.
Right.
And I'm gonna complain a lot. Not a lot, but I'm gonna complain a little bit. No, I'll talk a little bit about the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. And okay. My goodness, this movie was fantastic. So how would we characterize this film? Okay, let's talk about the things that we did not get right, or we kind of got right or wrong. Ray Liotta, not a mobster. He is, however, a criminal.
Yeah, close enough.
I mean, he's a stick-up guy. He is a petty thief who... It's not even like a petty thief because what he does is he holds up liquor stores.
And he's scary.
Oh, he's
very
terrifying.
scary in this.
This film has a fascinating turn halfway through where we go from a screwball road movie a la It Happened One Night meets, I don't know, Bringing a Baby, and then all of a sudden we are drop kicked into a really tense love triangle about domestic violence, a marriage falling apart, and trying to get away from abuse.
Yeah.
What really makes you appreciate that Demme and his collaborators is the way that they're able to make the transition and it doesn't feel weird or jarring. It's not that it's a super gradual transition, but there is like a moment where he smoothly moves from the screwball into a very much more intense film. And it's really brilliant. And the best part about it is he scores it to a Feelies song.
Well, with
and
the
not
Feelies
just
there.
right with the Feelies there. Oh my God, it's amazing.
So I didn't realize I was reading up on the Feelies in this, and the Willies was like a band. They would go around as the Willies and do cover songs. So
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so they call themselves the Willies in this.
They've had like a couple of alternate names. I'm blanking on the other one that they would actually release records as. And it's not because it wasn't like the full like Feelies, but yeah, that's okay. So for those who don't know, although if you're listening to our podcast, you probably know who they are.
Yeah.
The Feelies are a seminal post-punk band from New Jersey. They're amazing. They're kind of the missing link between the Velvet Underground and REM. In fact, Peter Buck actually produced one of their records in the 80s. We've seen them a couple of times. Crazy Rhythms is just such an amazing album, and there's a couple of songs from that in this film. I don't want to get too sidetracked because we will get to the Feelies showing up because it's so good. But anyway, should we talk about what happens in this movie?
Yeah, so let's start with the beginning.
Yes.
It starts off like right away, like they meet pretty much as the movie starts.
Yes. The movie opens with our hero, and you know what? Darn it! In the end, he is the hero.
Yeah.
Our hero.
Although you would not think it in the beginning.
Oh God, no.
He seems like
yuppie
trash.
scum.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the worst. He is the worst in the beginning of the film. But you know what? He wins you over.
Yeah.
Our hero is Charlie Driggs, played by Jeff Daniels. He probably is supposed to be, but at least in his early 30s, because Audrey is 28.
Oh, okay.
Because we do go to her 10-year high school reunion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So she's 28, so he's probably at least 30. Charlie is, as we said, yuppie scum.
Yeah, he's wearing a suit. He's got a beeper.
Oh, God. So this is 1986, and he has a beeper.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Like, if you're not a doctor or nurse with a beeper in the 80s, like, you're either doing something illegal or maybe you're a drug dealer. And in this case, he, like, it sounds like he works for, like, an investment bank.
So beepers did not last long.
I mean, they lasted maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if, like, a younger person would even know what a beeper was, because it just,
Oh, no.
it went.
Shh, don't you dare say that. Like, but my mother had a beeper because she was a nurse. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons you could have a beeper if you were somebody who was needed in emergency services. Anyway, it was
It's such a weird thing that's gone now.
I know. It's like I went to the grocery store 2 weeks ago and I had to explain to the checkout person what an 8-track was.
Why?
Oh, that's a good question. I forget. I honestly don't remember now how it came up, but I said something about some technology, and I'm like, you probably don't even remember this. She's like, oh, yeah, I guess I kind of remember that. And then I said, yeah, but I bet you don't remember 8-tracks. And I don't know why I brought that up, because like I know what an 8-track is, and you could buy 8-tracks at Zern's Farmers Market when I was a kid, but it's not like I ever had ever sat in a car that had an 8-track that I can remember. But anyway, so he has a beeper, and that's reason enough for you to kind of roll your eyes at him, because it's only 1986. And he's sitting in a lunch counter. That's where we meet him. And I look at this lunch counter, and I really thought Rizzo the Rat was going to pop up. It has the feel of the lunch counter in the Muppets Take Manhattan. This is like that New York it hasn't gone gentrified yet. You still had the porno theaters in Times Square.
Well, this
is the New York I wanted to go and move to when I was a child.
This is Desperately Seeking Susan, New York.
It really is.
And really, the first part is basically the Desperately Seeking Susan universe.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, there definitely is. It has a similar feel. And both of those movies are kind of playing off of screwball films from the 30s. So Charlie, he goes to his lunch counter every day, and sometimes he kind of rips them off a little bit, steals a candy bar, whatever, doesn't pay his check, dine and dash. And there's a woman there who sees this, and she just decides, yeah, I'm going to pick this guy up. This is our other hero, Melanie Griffith, playing Audrey, also
Lulu.
Yes, also known as Lulu. And when we first meet her, her hair is like black with a page boy cut.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it's a wig, but we don't know it's a wig. And I don't know that the film wants us to think it's a wig, but it's obviously a wig. Because first of all, the hair is just way too straight. And we also know what she actually looks like. So she's got that, and she wears a whole bunch of either African-inspired jewelry or just straight up Egyptian.
Yeah, I thought it looked Egyptian like that.
Well, it's a mix. It's a mix of like Egyptian and Pan-African stuff, which, yeah, okay, it's on a white woman, but all right, it's the 80s. We're just going to roll with it. She stops him outside of the restaurant and says, "You didn't pay your check," and he thinks she must work there or something. He doesn't really know, because this is a guy who I don't think pays attention to the world around him terribly much. He obviously comes to this place a lot. She's noticed him. He doesn't even notice who works there.
Because he thinks that she's a waitress trying to get the check back.
And she's not the waitress.
And she's like psychoanalyzing him, like, "Oh, I bet you do this, blah, 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 blah." At first you think she's messing with him, but I also feel like she's like, this guy's a square, but he steals, and I like stealing.
There is more going on with her psychologically, that she's watching him and trying to figure him out, even though as the audience, you're supposed to identify with him and he's trying to figure her out. I think they're both doing that at the same time. Thinking back on the movie and realizing that while we're supposed to be kind of seeing this through Charlie's eyes, we can also see her own motivations early on, which brings up the whole issue of, so yeah, I mean, she dresses kind of unconventionally. Her instinct is, hey, I'm essentially going to kidnap you. We're not going to go back to your office. You're going to come with me.
She throws away his beeper.
Yay.
But basically, she says, like, "Can I give you a ride?" And he's like, "Oh, you can take me back to my office, blah, blah, blah." Like completely not reading the room.
Yeah.
The entire movie, he never reads the room.
Not. Oh, he's very bad at like being situationally aware. Yeah. And she, while drinking from a big Scotch bottle, drives him off to New Jersey.
Yeah.
On a Friday afternoon.
He doesn't notice red flags at all.
Oh God, no. No. He really doesn't. That's the thing. Like
he misses like
every
70 red flags.
Oh my gosh, he is so thick. So they go off, they have their romantic encounter. It's a pretty good sex scene. Yeah. Actually. In its own weird, kinky way, it feels more realistic than stuff that came from the same time period. Like, you watch this sex scene up against, like, Top Gun. I mean, I realize that's a bad example.
That's a very bad comparison.
I'm just saying this one feels, like, more human.
Now, Top Gun, that was some pretty good acting considering he had to stand on, like, 2 or 3 milk crates to reach Kelly McGillis.
But yeah, so like she chains him to the bed, etc. And the whole like we're introduced to the idea that he has a wife and kids. So you're kind of predisposed at this point to dislike him if you're me, because I'm thinking, yo, dude, you have all of the moral fiber of
he definitely
a bowl
seems
of meat. I don't know.
And the entire time you're thinking, she's gonna rip him off. She's gonna chain him to the bed and then leave, or she's like. And it keeps getting you to this point where, like, okay, now this is where she leaves.
Right.
And
at what point does she just rob him and run off?
Yeah.
We keep waiting for that to happen. She never robs him, though. He drops his wallet when, they're leaving the motel, and we see her pick it up, but she's not robbing him at any point. Now, don't misunderstand. She is spending his money, but it's never without him knowing that she's spending the money. There are times where she does things like dine and dash and says that he'll take care of it, which is basically her forcing him to then blatantly run out on a check because she's messing with his head. But she's never covertly ripping him off. She never actually robs him or anything like that. But you're waiting for that to happen because she's got this very dangerous vibe. She convinces him, come off with me to Pennsylvania. I'm going to drive to my mother's house. You're going to come with me. They visit her mother somewhere in Pennsylvania. They like vaguely allude to it somewhere around Philadelphia, but they don't say exactly. The timeline on this movie is a little weird. Like, it takes them a long time to get from North Jersey to the Philly suburbs, if that's where it's supposed to be, which is only like at most a 2-hour drive. Like, we've done it many times, many times. It is not that far, but they make it seem like it takes a day.
So before we get to Pennsylvania, at the motel, she just crashes the car into the sign. And then they just walk down the highway instead of getting that. And he's like freaking out. I was like, "What? You're just gonna leave your car there?" And she's like, "Yeah, my suitcase is in there." Oh well, because the cops are there, like writing up a ticket.
And
then we get
the motorcycle cop.
Oh yeah,
who is writing out the ticket that they kind of escaped from is played by John Cale, who is a writer and director, and I guess his best. It depends on who you are, but probably his best known film is The Secret of Roan Inish, which is a great movie.
Huh.
He also was like, I guess the initial writer on E.T. before it got rewritten from a horror movie. He did a lot of stuff, but he plays the motorcycle cop.
And it is literally seconds before we see another director.
Oh my God. Yes, it is literally seconds because so now they still need a car. They go off to a used car dealer who is played by John Waters. Oh my God. It was so fun to see. Oh my God. It's just, see, that's the thing. Like when the movie starts, you just start seeing like this cast list. And because like Demme is not hiding who's going to show up in this movie, but you're kind of like, where in the, what? Who, and like John Waters. Yeah. And it's so good. He plays like the used car dealer and he's like, do you have any ID? And she's like, nope. So she pulls out $100 bill. Will this Franklin do it? It's like, yes.
Yeah. I think he said, now you're talking.
Yeah. See, he is in like perfect kind of sleazy used car dealer mode. Oh my God, I was so happy to see John Waters in this. So they go off to Pennsylvania, they meet her mom, and the house is like this kind of normal suburban house. It's actually kind of nice. Her mom's very nice. And Audrey does this whole thing where she pretends to have married Charlie. Meanwhile, Charlie, as far as we, the audience, knows, has a wife and children. You can see his character kind of falling for her the whole time, and you're just thinking, how do you think this is going to end, man? You've got to go back to your wife and kids at some point. At one point he calls his kids, or we see a brief phone call with him, and he's trying to explain something. It's very brief, and so you just get the sense that he has this family that he's abandoning, and it kind of turns you against the guy. And then we get this like little scene between him and the mother where she's essentially saying, "Yeah, no, I know you're not married. I know that. I don't know where she picked you up, but it's fine. She thinks she's making me happy. It's okay."
Yeah, you gotta think like Audrey's done this kind of thing before with some.
Yeah. and this is when we kind of figure out that Audrey's not young. Right. She's not like 20 and pulling this. She's 28 years old. Because we are in her bedroom and they flip through her yearbook. It's the class of 76. Well, this is 1986, which means it's been 10 years. And she's an adult. When I was 28, I was married. We bought a house. I mean, she's not a kid and she's still doing this. And you kind of think, okay, so what is her deal? Because, as you had brought up before we watched the film, is she a manic pixie dream girl? And that's the feeling you get. Like, what is with this woman?
The first half of the movie, she basically is, because we have no idea what her motivations are.
Right. She's just, I'm the magical being who's come into your life to shake up this yuppie and turn him from being a square into an adventurer.
And there are other movies like this in the 80s.
Yep.
And with lesser directors, that's pretty much that girl's only function. They're just there as like the wild girl to fix the guy.
Exactly. But that's not what this film does, because this is where it starts to turn. Audrey convinces him to come with her to her 10-year high school reunion.
And the Feelies, they don't travel very far.
They don't. And so if
so it
they
makes sense that they would be just hanging out around Philly.
So this is the scene. Like, already the music in this film has been great. The opening song was David Byrne, and we've heard other like artists.
There's a Go-Between song.
That hasn't been played yet, but yes. We've already heard, like, I don't know, Fine Young Cannibals covering Buzzcocks. The film score is John Cale from Velvet Underground and Laurie Anderson from Laurie Anderson. But then you go to this high school reunion and the band playing is the Feelies. And it's great. You go, like, when you go in at first, you just hear that there's a band playing, and then, like, I guess they start playing I'm a Believer.
Yeah.
And, like, first of all, I mean, I'm a Believer. Okay, don't think about Shrek. Just put that out of your head. Don't think about Smash Mouth. And I'm like, oh my God, Chewie, we're home. I felt like, yes, this is where I should have been. So we get like like a whole like middle of this movie is set at this high school reunion where the Feelies are playing, and it's great because we get several songs from them. Like, yes, you don't get entire like 5 minutes of crazy rhythms or nothing, but you do get like there's an entire scene. It's so good where it's the two of them dancing to the Feelies covering Fame, David Bowie's song, and it's so good. Oh my god! And he's like, Jeff Daniels, Charlie. He's playing. He's dancing like. I mean, he's a dork, but you watch him like kind of loosening up and being happy, and it's such a great scene. Like they play. They play David Bowie and they play Crazy Rhythms, I think, at one point, and then they play I'm a Believer, and I'm getting to the last song we hear from them, but it's great because this is a very crucial scene because we watch them kind of loosen up around each other. Okay, so that's number one. Two, and two. That's good, Mayor. Two, he runs into a coworker from back in New York who works in accounting. And this is good because this kind of gives us a sense of what Charlie's life is away from Audrey. Charlie's just trying to hide why he's there and he's with Audrey, and you think he's trying to hide the fact that, he has started an affair. This is such a good scene because the guy from work, Larry, then starts talking to, I guess, his wife. I'm trying to think of who he's trying to explain this to, if it was that or somebody else. It's now escaping me because we watched the movie yesterday. Mm-hmm. And he starts saying, you know what? I think it might be yeah, okay, we'll get to that.
See that this is after the turn.
This is after the turn. You're absolutely right. Okay.
We're pre-turn. This whole movie is a completely different movie before the turn. So.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Okay, so
right now the guy's just like, yeah, go. I didn't know you had it in you.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Like, high five, yuppie power.
Yeah, so we just assume that Larry is cheering Charlie on having an affair. And then there's this amazing turn in the film, and the whole film kind of hinges on this moment where in comes... First, Charlie is at the bar, okay?
Yep.
And
I think Crazy Rhythms is playing
Crazy
here.
Rhythms starts playing,
and
yes.
that's where Irene
And this
appears.
is where this woman Irene appears. By now, Audrey has, she's all in white, and she's dyed her hair blonde, and she's made herself over.
And the thing is, everyone is in, pastels and stuff, and they're all wearing these, red, white, and blue hats.
Because they're the class of 76.
And Irene comes in. She's dressed all in black.
Yes, and she has black hair.
And so she's right in the center of the frame and stuff. It's like, bad things are coming.
Yep. Oh, yeah. So she comes in, and she just starts talking to Charlie at the bar, and you think she's trying to pick him up. And we don't really know what her motivation is at first. And he's basically saying, no, sorry, I'm married. I'm not interested. And you can't really hear much of their conversation because the song Crazy Rhythms is playing over everything. And it's the music is just building and building. You can't really hear what's going on. In comes Ray.
Yeah.
Ray is played by, strangely enough, Ray Liotta. This is apparently a very early role of his, if not his first film role. And he is just electric and terrifying.
Yeah.
And Ray comes in and
already on cocaine. He's been on he was on cocaine from this movie all the way up to Goodfellas.
Past that into Copland.
Yeah.
Which is a good movie, by the way. He is very intense in this role. He comes in and I knew watching it. Oh, okay, this is the guy. See, earlier in the film, when they're going through the yearbook, we find these little newspaper clippings that Audrey had saved about somebody who was a stick-up guy. And we'd already heard intimations that the car that she was initially driving had belonged to her ex. And so we know that there's a guy in her past. And there's a guy in the past who is apparently some sort of a criminal. Well, here he is. And he is terrifying. He is there with Irene. And his whole thing is he's there to get back Audrey. I guess he is just out of prison, maybe.
And I think the turn, the way it's done, they're dancing to, what's the...
Fame?
No, it's the
Loveless Love.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is the song, again, the Feelies, Loveless Love, starts up. And, oh my God, you get just all goosebumps because the song has this kind of, menacing quality when it starts off. And Ray Liotta just like takes over the movie at this point.
Everything goes dark and the lights on him. He looks really sweaty and like it's a really intense scene.
And he's basically grilling them on the dance floor. This is where you know, oh, this guy is extremely dangerous. It should click for the audience, oh, this is the guy that Audrey's been alluding to through the movie.
And Charlie is clueless.
Oh my God, he is just, I mean.
I think he's just like, oh, she just has scary friends and that's fine.
Ray is trying to figure out what's the deal. Why is Audrey with this guy, Charlie? What's going on? Grilling people at the reunion. And he talks to Larry, the guy from the office. And Larry says, oh, well, yeah, I'm really glad that he found Audrey because, his wife left him months ago, ran off with the dentist, took the kids. So then this is where, again, this is part of the hinge where we find out, okay, Charlie is not a scumbag. Well, I mean, he's a yuppie, but he's not, he hasn't run out on his wife. That already ended.
Right.
He's already kind of this sad, lonely guy. He hasn't been leaving his family in the lurch for the weekend to run off with this woman. He doesn't have anything to go home to.
Right.
And that's why it was so easy for him.
He's promoted to vice president.
And that's the thing. Like, they don't really they don't say a lot in the movie about it, but like, if your marriage broke up and you still got promoted to vice president, I think I know why your marriage broke up. Ray is like putting this all together in his head. Meanwhile, he's grilling Audrey. Hey, how did you guys get together? He starts grilling Charlie. Hey, how did you guys get together? And they keep up the lie of, oh, well, we met in September, a year ago, and we've been together, and blah, 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 and like we're married and all this stuff. Yeah. And he knows that like something is not adding up. And Audrey's not entirely clear on what Charlie's past is, actually. Like, she doesn't realize that the marriage was over. She just thinks he's here and he is not Ray. That's the impression I get.
I get the feeling that her thought process was like, oh, this guy breaks the rules sometimes, and he has a wedding ring. I can use this.
Oh, it might be entirely mercenary.
I think she's like, I can have fun for a weekend. I can give this guy a thrill for however long before he goes back to the suburbs.
Oh yeah, that too. Okay, so maybe it's not. She doesn't necessarily want to extort him. She's just like looking for a good time.
Right.
That's true.
But we didn't know that until maybe around now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the whole time we're thinking, is she going to rip him off? Is she going to, like, I don't know, murder him? Who knows what?
From here, the film definitely takes a turn because now that Ray is in the picture, it's all about him trying to isolate the two of them and to get Audrey away from him. And so then the rest of the film unfolds. He forces them back to a motel. He beats up Charlie.
Yeah.
And points out that, hey, you know what? I'm actually still married to Audrey.
She's
mine.
This is after he robs a...
Oh, right. He robs the convenience store. So here's the thing about the convenience store. All right.
Now, this is a separate issue.
Let me take a sip of this beer.
Oh, where'd you buy that beer? Did you buy that at the convenience store?
No, I did not. I bought it at a beer distributor because I live in Pennsylvania. Now, here's the way that Pennsylvania works. Unlike most of the country, in fact, I'm not even sure how most of the country works. I remember we went to Missouri and we went to a Target and they were selling bottles of scotch and I'm like, what is this? And the same thing happened when we went to California. I'm like, where am I? Because here's the thing, in Pennsylvania, buying alcohol is not easy. I mean, it's not like... It's easier than buying marijuana, but it's not easy. So, for whatever reason, I don't know, blame the Quakers. Pennsylvania has a very strict liquor control board. Okay, so you want to buy scotch. You want to buy a bottle of scotch, you have to go to a liquor store. Now, the liquor stores are all controlled by the state of Pennsylvania.
Now, can you buy beer at a state store?
You cannot buy beer at a state store. Now, if you want to buy wine, you'll have to go to a state store, or you go to certain grocery stores that are allowed to sell wine because they also sell food that you can eat on the premise.
That's new, though.
That is new.
That was not the case in the 80s.
That was definitely not the case in the 80s. And it's only been the case for, 5 years? Yeah. It hasn't been very long. You could not buy wine at the grocery store until the last maybe 5 years. So you can buy wine in 2 places in Pennsylvania. Or you can go to a winery. There are wineries in Pennsylvania. We actually are a pretty good climate for growing grapes. Now, as for beer, this is where it gets even more complicated. So if you want to buy beer in Pennsylvania, you can go to the following couple of places. You can go to a beer distributor. Now, these are businesses that only sell beer. Now, they'll sell soft drinks as well, so you can buy soda there. But their primary purpose is to sell beer.
And scratch-offs.
Yeah, you can buy scratch-offs, and you might buy, like, I don't know, bags of chips.
Yeah.
But not like large bags of chips.
Like a bottle opener in the shape of a banana or something.
Exactly. But other than that, the only thing you buy at a beer distributor is beer. And there are some beer distributors that you can do drive-thrus, but most of them, they're just like, they're kind of like a warehouse.
Yeah.
And you walk in, and it's a concrete floor, and everything smells vaguely yeasty because it is a beer distributor.
Yeah.
And you load up your pallets with cases of beer. Now, that's if you want to buy a case of beer. Now, if you want to buy less than a case, so you want to buy a 12-pack, now they've started allowing you to buy 12-packs, but that's, again, only within maybe the past 10 to 5 years. It used to be you had to buy a whole 24 case. You couldn't buy a 12-pack. Now, if you want to buy a 6-pack, all right, this is where it gets complicated. Now, it used to be you couldn't buy a 6-pack at a beer distributor, although they do sell that now. But mostly you'd only buy them if they're refrigerated. Now, you could not buy a 6-pack at a grocery store until the last maybe 5 years. And the only place it used to be that, and certainly this was true in the 80s, the only place you could buy a 6-pack of beer was if you went to a deli that had sit-down eating or a bar. A bar could sell a 6-pack and a deli. But if the deli didn't have tables and chairs where you could sit down and eat a sandwich, they could not sell you beer. So, about 10 years ago, grocery stores started lobbying, let us sell beer in Pennsylvania. And the Liquor Control Board said, we will let you do that, but only if you put in someplace where you will sell sandwiches. So that people had to sit down and eat there. That meant that they could sell beer. And this is still kind of true. I think they've kind of started to pull back. Like, you can't go into a Wawa and buy beer, although there is beer made by Wawa. I'm not entirely sure where you buy it.
Yeah.
Okay. There's like coffee stouts.
You buy it in Florida.
Well, that's just it. Exactly. You don't buy it in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay. So
where there's also Wawas, by the way.
Yeah, because we've got our tentacles.
Yeah.
This is why Gritty is now an international icon.
Yeah.
So
long story short, you don't like the movie because it doesn't portray how beer buying works in Pennsylvania.
So here's the thing: they go into a convenience store to buy beer. You can't do that in Pennsylvania. You can't go into a 7-Eleven here and buy beer. Okay. And what got me about this was, and I realized I just gave you this whole, like buying alcohol in Pennsylvania is very complicated. You can't just go to one place and buy whatever you want, is what I'm getting at. So if you buy, in the film, they go to a convenience store to buy beer, and you can't do that here. And why that stood out to me is because Demme made sure that everything in these stores said Pennsylvania. He had like signs for the Pennsylvania lottery. He's bumper sticks said you got a friend in Pennsylvania. He works really hard to make everything look like at one point in the one convenience store he even has like hex signs over some of the coolers.
Yeah.
And like it blew my mind watching this because I'm like you can't buy beer in Pennsylvania like this. For one thing, you certainly couldn't buy a 12-pack anywhere unless you went to a beer distributor, and that's only recently. By the way, you also couldn't buy alcohol in Pennsylvania on Sundays until like 2004. I remember when they legalized that. I'm watching this, I'm going, but it's obviously not Pennsylvania because you can't do that here.
So you hate this movie is what you're saying.
No, but I found it really amusing because if there's one thing, Pennsylvania is known for a couple of things. One, our roads are terrible.
Yeah, they are.
2, everybody hates us when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
3, buying alcohol here is really weird.
Well, when you're talking about sports, you're talking about the Pittsburgh and Philly, which are two separate countries.
I just said everybody hates us. I didn't have to get into like why everybody hates us. It's for different reasons.
I'm just saying. I think there are a lot of Steelers fans in the country.
Where? Why would you be a Steelers fan?
I don't know, but because they won a lot, so people like.
Oh, that's dumb.
I don't know.
I don't agree with that. I do not support it, and I think it needs to be fought tooth and nail.
Yeah.
Anyway, I realize this is a long digression, but I bring it up for 2 reasons. 1, because I live here. 2, again, like, I just found it interesting. Demme tries really hard to make sure that everything around the setting is in some way accurate. Like, he didn't have to put up all like the Pennsylvania lottery signs and all this stuff that otherwise makes it look like a convenience store in Pennsylvania.
He probably wrote it thinking about New York and was like, well, I guess they went to Pennsylvania.
Well, somebody else wrote it.
Or yeah, whoever it is.
Yeah.
But then, like, the set dresser is like, they went hog wild and got as many Pennsylvania things as they could.
And I appreciate that person.
Yeah.
They worked hard. But it is very funny to me because when I go to another state and, like, alcohol is freely available wherever you want, it's kind of like when we were on the road this summer and we were in Colorado and they have just, like, dispensaries everywhere. And I'm just like, no, that's a trap. It's like, no, it's not a trap. It's perfectly legal in Colorado and other states. But again, in Pennsylvania, marijuana is still illegal and alcohol is barely legal.
Yeah.
So
I'm just saying that the writer and, like, the director, like, they don't, like, they aren't in charge of getting props and that kind of thing.
that's
And
true.
So, like, he might not have even thought of that.
Well, somebody thought of it and I appreciated their work, but found it kind of funny.
Maybe there was a giant argument on the set between, like, the set dresser and Jonathan Demme saying, like, now you wouldn't be able to buy beer here.
So yeah, then the rest of the film is Ray. I mean, he essentially kidnaps Audrey. They start off for Virginia. I don't know if we know exactly where he's off to, but the point is he's broken parole because he is on parole in Pennsylvania, and he's just driving her away from Charlie.
It plays off at first as if, like, Charlie just leaves.
Yeah,
And he's like,
Because he's
you
been beat
guys
up.
have a good life.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
but
Ray.
it turns out he's the hero.
Right.
He is the hero.
Well, he is the hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ray is violent and terrifying. He's wearing these steel-toed boots and he kicks holes in walls more than once.
He has a gun.
He walks around with a gun. He ripped off. Yeah, so he pistol whips a guy at the convenience store. So you kind of see why maybe Audrey does the things she does is because she's been under his control since it's it might be since high school.
Yeah, and you can see stealing is second nature to her, and it certainly is to him too.
And
So
you
it's
get
just
the feeling
crowd that she's been in.
exactly. You get the feeling that this is why maybe stealing is second nature to her because she fell in with him. The second half of the film is Charlie pretends to go away, but then he spends the rest of the movie trying to track down Audrey and get her away from Ray. I love there's one scene where he keeps trying to cross a highway and it just looked like human Frogger.
Yeah.
It was so scary to watch.
Yeah.
He is able to get her away and they decide to drive back to his home up in Stony Brook in Long Island. The first thing Ray does is he goes up to Audrey's apartment in New York City, doesn't find her there, but he knows to go up to Stony Brook. And so
Well, he knows Charlie's name, so he just calls Charlie's.
Oh, that's right. That's what
Work.
it, yeah. So he calls Charlie's work. And,
Yeah.
yeah. We then follow Charlie and Audrey up to his home.
His big old suburban home.
He lives in a big old ranch house that I'm sure in better times is quite nice. But this is where we see how Charlie actually lives. And it's really sad because, again, the wife and kids are gone. The house is mostly empty. A lot of the furniture is gone.
Yeah, it's like an easy chair, a TV, a bed, a glass window behind the TV.
Yep.
Important glass window.
That is important. But yeah, his house is kind of just emptied out of everything.
and wood paneling everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, again, it is a classic suburban ranch house on Long Island.
Yeah.
So they think that they're safe, and then as
we
he's
know
falling,
they're not.
Well, we know they're not, but we know that Ray's coming. And oh my God, this is terrifying because again, he's got this whole like kind of glass window looking out on their backyard, I guess. And next thing you know, there's a lawn chair comes smashing through the plate glass, and it's Ray breaking into the house. And it really is terrifying. This is just a straight up home invasion, and he just starts brutalizing both Charlie and Audrey. He chains Charlie to a sink after just beating him up and like stretching his arms out of the the joints and everything, and then just starts assaulting Audrey. It's a really terrifying scene, and it's fascinating how the film, when you think of how light and airy it started off and fun and sexy, and that we've transitioned into an entire movie about like domestic violence and abuse and trying to get out of an absolutely horrible marriage. Charlie ends up becoming a hero because, you know, he's chained to the plumbing and he rips it out of the wall. And
So these are the handcuffs. They've been on Charlie on and off the whole movie, by the way.
that's
Like,
true. Yeah.
She puts them on like the first time they have sex, and then like I think she doesn't take them off until he meets her mom.
Yeah. That's the first time she finally takes them off of him.
And then
Which is interesting. I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of symbolic.
Yeah.
Because he finally gets the cuffs off when he meets the mother, and he at this point is actually kind of falling for her.
yeah.
And so really the handcuffs are not necessary anymore.
She says, "You're free now," and he says, "What if I don't want to be free?" And she's like, "Maybe you're not."
So then for Ray to come and handcuff him again, you just are handcuffed to this situation. You know, you're not free from this. So a struggle ensues, and at one point he's trying to choke Ray with the handcuffs, and you know, whatever. Ray has a knife. In the struggle, Charlie picks up Ray's knife, and Ray ends up accidentally getting impaled on the knife. Next thing you see is the cops show up and are taking statements. Audrey just goes off with the cops to give a statement and walks out of his life. The next time we see Charlie, he is still in a sling and he still looks roughed up, and he's quit his new vice president position at the company. We don't know what he does with the rest of his life, but we just know that he is not going back to work in the office that he was at. And he began the film just so proud that he was a vice president. The very end of the film is we're back in the lunch counter, and it's essentially just replaying the beginning of the film. And again, he walks out, and again, he's accused of not paying, but this time by an actual waitress from...
Well, actually, what happens is he pays and leaves.
Oh, that's right.
But Audrey actually took the money.
Yeah.
And
But we didn't see that.
yeah.
They have a little reunion, and he goes off with her.
Yep.
And that's the end of the film. And it's very sweet. It's a very sweet ending.
Yeah.
And that is... that is Something Wild. And man, it is a wild movie.
So I feel like those characters are very much like Baxter and Fran in The Apartment.
Oh, okay, go on.
In that they're both kind of like these losers in the world, and they're just trying to get by, but they don't really realize that they're the same or something until the end.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's strange to see a similarity to The Apartment in terms of how they relate to each other. Other films that came to mind, watching this, I just kept thinking all of the scenes of them on the road is kind of It Happened One Night.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
The whole she's on the run trying to get away from her criminal husband made me think of Ball of Fire, the Barbara Stanwyck, Gary Cooper movie. And actually you could see like maybe a Barbara Stanwyck and Gary Cooper in these roles if they made this back in the 30s or 40s. Like at least the first half of the movie has a very screwball feel to it. What I find interesting is just like the turn that it makes and that it handles it so well. Jonathan Demme is interesting to me because he's not usually spoken of in the same breath as some of his contemporaries. When people think about like American New Wave, he's not usually counted among it, even though he comes out of the same group. So Demme worked for Roger Corman.
Right.
You know, he like a lot of those guys, he started off working for like Roger Corman. Coppola started there. Scorsese started there. De Palma, I think, started with that. Like a lot of these guys. Bogdanovich worked for Roger Corman. By the way, just as an aside, Roger Corman is still alive. He's 95 years old. That's amazing. He's gonna outlive everybody.
Yeah.
Roger Corman. Okay, so he's like king of the B movies and like schlock guy extraordinaire, but some of his films are really awesome. I mean, like he did the original Little Shop of Horrors. He has his whole like the Post cycle that he did with Vincent Price.
Those
like,
movies are so good.
They're so good. The Fall of the House of Usher, The Raven, The Pit and the Pendulum. Dude, go and watch those movies. They are so much fun. I mean, first of all, it's Vincent Price, but like Roger Corman, like he kind of got a lot of these guys established, and so Jonathan Demme came out of that. But what I always find interesting is Demme doesn't get mentioned in the same breath as a lot of his
Is
contemporaries.
he maybe not friends with them? Because they all seem to be friends.
I don't know. See, I don't know that they're not. I just think I always feel like he kind of stands apart in some ways. I find Demme really interesting because, as I was saying to somebody last night on Twitter, I feel like he is sort of a bridge between, the new Hollywood, the American New Wave guys, and the indie guys who came in the 90s. Because he definitely had a big influence, and they've all said, like, he was an influence on Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, oh gosh,
Hal Hartley.
Oh yeah, you can feel Hal Hartley.
But what about Spike Lee?
Well, see, now that's the one that I wasn't sure about, and I've thought a lot about that, and I feel like he and Spike Lee were rivals.
Huh.
And I don't think that they were contentious rivals, but they were contemporaries. They both come from New York City. Spike Lee, in my mind, is very much his sort of rival and also complement.
And they both got to work with David Byrne.
And they both, yes, that's actually really fascinating to me that they both worked with David Byrne, and both created 2 fantastic concert films. Like, again, I mentioned in the pre-show, Stop Making Sense is one of my favorite. Like, it's considered one of the greatest concert films ever made, but it's also one of my favorite. But we saw American Utopia, and we actually got to see the stage show like a couple weeks ago, and oh my God, mind blowing. But like, the Spike Lee film of it is great. Demme is closer to Spike Lee in terms of like what they do and what they make and how they make it than a lot of the other guys that came out of that school. I think he had an influence that's kind of underrated. The indie movies of the 90s and all of those guys, don't think they would have looked the same without Jonathan Demme.
I don't know.
I find Demme interesting for another reason is I feel like he always has like a foot in the art world in a way that a lot of those guys didn't in the same way.
I think that's why he's not counted among them, because I feel like he never really went full Hollywood.
I think that's true, which is interesting because at the same time, it's not like, I mean, Silence of the Lambs was huge. Philadelphia was huge. But I think he always had a foot in the New York art world.
Yeah.
He is, I think, as much descended of Andy Warhol as he is from Roger Corman. And I say specifically Andy Warhol because the thing that Demme does a lot is close-ups. And it's not Warhol didn't invent the close-up, but he liked to utilize them.
Yeah.
As we just saw in that Velvet Underground documentary, I think he always had a foot in that world. He was always a mainstream artist, but he always was pulling out of those other worlds. So that in this movie, who does he cast in little cameos? He throws in like John Waters. He casts the Feelies.
Now, speaking of close-ups, like for instance, the scene where John Waters is a used car salesman, I don't think you even see the used car lot at all.
Never.
You just see him and her, and it's like just close-ups of them.
Yeah.
Like there's barely any set.
That's what's kind of interesting. He's very human focused.
Yeah.
And he always was very like human focused. He doesn't go for giant set pieces. He's not like Spielberg.
Although like we said, like the reunion in the middle, like, that's pretty impressive. Like just like the camera movement through like the dance scenes and
And he keeps it very fluid, and he's able to kind of capture that there are all these different people here, and like you get these little snippets of conversation, and you get these little moments. There's one point where Audrey sits and she's talking to a woman that we're never even introduced to, but he captures 5 seconds of them talking as old classmates. All these little moments like that. Well, at the same time, he can pull back and show all these people dancing. He can pull back, and you can see the band. You can pull back. He has a fluidity of camera movement and perspective in that whole sequence that is really, really wonderful.
What I feel like is that after the turn, the whole movie, I'm worried, like, oh, is this going to be a manic pixie dream girl? She's just there to fix him. And no, because the whole half of the movie is consequences to this whole fantasy that he lives through in the beginning.
That's true. And although we still keep Charlie as the eyes through which we watch the action, we get to see more about Audrey and understand she is a person, and she doesn't exist for him and to bring him out of his shell. So yeah, she's not a manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah. Oh, no, we did have a question for
Oh,
each other.
yeah.
So who would be your Willies
Oh,
if
so,
you made this film?
yeah. So he put the Feelies in this movie because he just loved that band, and he wanted to have them as the house band in this one scene. So we were asking each other, okay, you're making a movie. Who do you put in if you have
Like
a
for
scene
an
with a house
absurd
band?
amount of time in the middle of the film in the most important scene.
Absolutely ridiculous amount of time in the yes. And it's a tough question to answer. Like, picking the Feelies is brilliant. And like, if you're Hal Hartley, then you're gonna do like Yo La Tengo. So I can't give that answer. Although it was like my second thought was, oh well, I guess I could do Yo La Tengo, but like no. So who would be your band?
Well, me it would be Unrest, ideally, but like that would be in the 90s or something. But if it was now, it'd probably be like some new band like Gustav or Wet Leg.
Oh my God. Depending on the type of movie I'm making, like Gustav is a good choice.
They're this great band, and like they have this one singer. She always uses this voice modulator, so she sings low, kind of like Laurie Anderson in Home of the Brave, which we will see eventually.
We will absolutely see at some point.
But
yeah,
so
Gustav's.
it'd be really funny her singing like "Wild Thing" in a scene.
That's a good answer. I like that.
Kurt Vile would be fun.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we could afford Kurt Vile, but that would be mind blowing. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think I could get Perry Shao?
Sure.
I'd love to have like Wildflowers of America or Hound.
Yeah.
To play in my movie.
Perry Shao is the Bjork of Philly.
He is a multi-talented and extremely nice person. But also, like, there are a couple other bands, like Sweeping Promises is really good. And boy, this is going to be a long episode, but yeah, the music in this movie is incredible. Like, that's another thing I want to talk about Demme really quickly, and I'm not going to take too long, but like his sense of music is so, for the time period that he's making it in, is so hip compared to a lot of his contemporaries.
Yeah, like the music, it doesn't feel that dated.
Well, I mean, we're going to say that because,
yeah, I feel like John Cale and Laurie Anderson really made it the hits. I mean, not the hits, like the songs blend together. The
music that they composed for this, it's not orchestral. It's not like something by, Elmer Bernstein. It's atmospheric.
Yeah, like, because I was excited when I saw like John Cale and Laurie Anderson. And by the end of the movie, I'm like, wait, did they do anything?
Oh yeah, no. It's subtle, but it's
very subtle. Whatever, like
it's never overpowering. But I think it's actually used really well. There's a lot of stuff like vocal stuff going on that I think works really nicely. But I read somewhere on the internet today. There's something like 49 different songs used in this movie. Okay. So, after a very long episode, because this might be one of my new favorite movies ever, and so finally, I want to thank John Solomon. Did he
recommend it?
He is the one who sort of put the bug in my ear, and then a couple other people, friends, like mutual friends of ours, also had brought it up and said, "Oh yeah, that's a good one. You should watch that." But no, this basically goes back to John Solomon saying, "Yeah, you should definitely watch this movie." So thank you, John Solomon, the man behind the 25-hour holiday marathon at WPRB. Longtime DJ, head of Comedy -1 Records, sometimes journalist, and just all around awesome person.
Yeah.
All right, you can follow us on social media. We are Mary VS Movies on Twitter, and we are maryvsmovies@gmail.com. Please contact us with any comments, questions, complaints, or suggestions. We are available on Apple, what is it called? Apple Podcasts? Whatever replaced iTunes, I still don't know, and I still haven't updated my laptop, and I refuse to.
Can I get that on my beeper?
We're available on Spotify. We're on Stitcher. You can find us through Overcast. You can get our RSS feed over on Anchor. Please leave us a review on Apple so that more people can hear us if we are worth listening to. If not, I understand. I'm doing this for myself at this point, which is a revelation that I came across this week. Anyway, next week is actually Thanksgiving. And leaving aside the disclaimers of, yes, colonialism, very bad. We're not celebrating that. What we are celebrating, however, is the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yay.
A movie that I've never actually seen in full. I've seen bits and pieces. It's one of those movies that has always been on cable, but I've never actually seen the whole film.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think I've ever seen the beginning of it. I've seen the end a lot.
I've seen, you know what? I've seen what I assume is the best moment in the whole film.
Is this the devil?
It's the devil.
Yeah.
I've seen that one. But other than that, I've never seen the whole film. So I'm kind of excited to finally sit and watch the John Hughes comedy, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, to celebrate Thanksgiving.
Maybe the best John Hughes film.
So, until next week.
Sorry, Charlie.